Good evening, welcome. You're watching Left, Right and Centre. Tonight our hearts are heavy as India reels from the horrific massacre in Pahalgam, a brutal act of terror that's claimed 26 precious lives and left countless others shattered. The serene valleys of Kashmir, once a symbol of peace, now echo with grief and with rage as families mourn their loved ones and the injured fight for survival. A united India demands answers and action. In Delhi, the government has been in a huddle. Prime Minister Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah attended a crucial meeting of the CCS, which is the Cabinet Committee on Security. Earlier, the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, in the hardest-hitting remarks by any Indian leader so far, has said that India will hunt down the Pahalgam attackers and their masterminds hiding behind a curtain. What's more, India will respond soon in a finite period of time. We do expect a press conference by the External Affairs of Ministry. In fact, that's just begun. Let's take a look.
I give the floor to Foreign Secretary. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Randir. Good evening. Thank you all for your patience and for joining at this relatively late hour. I have some prepared remarks that I'll share with you. And as Randir said, due to some preoccupations, we'll not be able to take questions tonight. The Cabinet Committee on Security met this evening under the chairmanship of the Honorable Prime Minister. The CCS was briefed in detail on the terrorist attack on 22nd April 2025 in Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir, in which 25 Indians and one Nepali citizen were killed. A number of others sustained injuries. The CCS condemned the attack in the strongest terms and expressed its deepest condolences to the families of the victims and hoped for the early recovery of the injured. Strong expressions of support and solidarity have been received from many governments around the world, which have unequivocally condemned this terror attack. The CCS recorded its appreciation for such sentiments, which reflect zero tolerance for terrorism. In the briefing to the CCS, the cross-border linkages of the terrorist attack were brought out. It was noted that this attack came in the wake of the successful holding of the elections in the Union Territory and its steady progress towards economic growth and development. Recognizing the seriousness of this terrorist attack, the CCS decided upon the following measures. 1. The Indus Waters Treaty of 1960 will be held in abeyance with immediate effect until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures its support for cross-border terrorism. 2. The integrated checkpost Attari will be closed with immediate effect. Those who have crossed over with valid endorsements may return through that route before 1 May 2025. 3. Pakistani nationals will not be permitted to travel to India under the SAARC visa exemption scheme visas. Any SVAS visas issued in the past to Pakistani nationals are deemed cancelled. Any Pakistani national currently in India under SVAS visa has 48 hours to leave India. 4. The Defence, Military, Naval and Air Advisors in the Pakistani High Commission in New Delhi are declared persona non grata. They have a week to leave India. India will be withdrawing its own Defence, Navy and Air Advisors from the Indian High Commission in Islamabad. These posts in the respective High Commissions are deemed annulled. 5 support staff of the service advisors will also be withdrawn from both High Commissions. 5. The overall strength of the High Commissions will be brought down to 30 from the present 55 through further reductions to be effected by 1st May 2025. The CCS reviewed the overall security situation and directed all forces to maintain high vigil. It resolved that the perpetrators of this attack will be brought to justice and their sponsors held to account. As with the recent extradition of Tahawur Rana, India will be unrelenting in the pursuit of those who have committed acts of terror or conspired to make them possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we come to the closure of this press briefing. Thank you very much.
All right, that's one of the most consequential press conferences that we've heard from any government authority in Delhi. And I'm just going to go through the main points. You saw Vikram Misri, the Foreign Secretary, addressing the media after the Prime Minister concluded the Cabinet Committee on Security meeting, which ended a little while back. Significantly, India, as a result of following the terrorist attack in Pahalgam, in which 26 people were killed, is holding the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance. We'll bring you full details of that. It's arguably the hardest hitting diplomatic step India has taken vis-a-vis Pakistan. It directly has an impact on millions of lives in Pakistan. Water sharing is absolutely critical, but India says that we are holding that treaty in abeyance. It's on hold. The Attari border crossing has been closed. It will be closed from the 1st of May onwards. Pakistani nationals are not allowed in India under SARC visas. Those SARC visas have been deemed cancelled if they have already been issued, and those in India on that particular category of SARC visa have 48 hours to leave our country. Defense advisors of the Pakistani Armed Forces, Army, Air Force and Navy have been declared persona non grata in India. Similarly, India will be withdrawing our Army, Air Force and Navy staff, military advisors in Islamabad. The posts themselves have been annulled. That's been declared by New Delhi. Support staff at the embassies will be reduced. Remember, our ambassadors are presently not there in either New Delhi or in Islamabad. That's because diplomatic relations were scaled down. The overall strength was at 55 members in the Indian embassy in Islamabad and the Pakistani mission over here. From 55, that's being brought down to 30 by the 1st of May. All the armed forces of India are now on a high vigil. India has said, and we heard this from the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh earlier today, that perpetrators will be held responsible and that India will be unrelenting in our pursuit of the terrorists and the masterminds who were responsible for this. I'm going to bring in our guests, General Satish Dua, General Subroto Saha, and General S.L. Narsimhan, three of the finest thinkers in the armed forces and brilliant military leaders. We've also got Amitabh Mattu, author and professor, Prakash Singh, the former Director General of the BSF, again somebody with a profound understanding of the security situation there. Michael Kugelman, Director of the South Asia Institute at the Wilson Center, joins us, and Ifra Jan, spokesperson of the National Conference, will be with us as well. General Saha, let me come to you first. You heard that press conference. Holding the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, what does that mean?
Well, this is the first, as you said, strong action that has been taken for the first time. We've been hearing about this for a while, and the fine print has to be studied. Holding in abeyance, what does it translate on the ground, especially in these summer months, is going to be extremely crucial, because over the last 48 hours, many analysts have spoken about this as a likely action that is being taken. In many ways, actually, many analysts also felt, given the tight corner in which Asim Munir was or is in his own country, given the schisms which are there and the tight spot that he is in, given Imran Khan on one side and his dwindling popularity on the other side, he was very keen in every sense to try and provoke India. So I think he has, in that sense, it is now on the ball is in his court to respond the way he must and show what does he have, because we all heard that bombastic speech, which is something which was happening, shall we say, almost 2 decades back, and we saw him try to pull out that old record from some place, some old archive, and dust it and replay it once again, suddenly empowered by the events happening in Bangladesh and the constant sense of support that he seems to be getting from China, and hoping like hell that he will get a position like what Musharraf had got, with US telling him that, okay, calm down the tempers along the line of control and stuff like that, because all of a sudden Rajouri Punch, he activated along the line of control, and then there was the speech activities in Bangladesh. So he thought that he will, try and regain some importance and try and get things going. Well, that being on the one side. And on the other side, in many ways, I think it is the ISI as well, which was almost getting into a cold storage with regard to happenings in Kashmir, with all the troubles that they had got themselves into in the manner in which they were managing Afghanistan, and the happenings on the Western Front, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan, and so on. So now that they have gone in for this dastardly and horribly, provocative attack, I think India has chosen to take the first step, very calculated first step, and I think it is now going to unfold as we go by.
All right.
And I think a very important statement of the Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh.
In fact, General Saha, let me interrupt you there, because I think that's what I'd like to focus on next. To put in context what was mentioned by the Foreign Secretary over there, the Defence Minister's remarks earlier today, extremely strong. Some would suggest that with those remarks, India may be veering towards eventual military action. We'll come to that in a moment, but let's listen to what Rajnath Singh had to say.
आतंकवादियों द्वारा किए गए कायरतापूर्ण हमले में हमारे देश ने अनेक निर्दोष नागरिकों को खोया है। इस घोर अमानवीय कृत्य से हम सभी गहरे शोक और दर्द में हैं। सबसे पहले मैं उन सभी परिवारों के प्रति अपनी गहरी संवेदना व्यक्त करता हूं जिन्होंने अपने प्रियजनों को खोया है। टेररिज्म के खिलाफ हमारी जीरो टॉलरेंस की पॉलिसी है। भारत का एक एक नागरिक इस कायरतापूर्ण हरकत के खिलाफ एकजुट है। मैं इस मंच से देशवासियों को आश्वस्त करता हूं, घटना के मद्देनजर भारत सरकार वो हर कदम उठाएगी जो जरूरी और उपयुक्त होगा। और हम सिर्फ उन लोगों तक नहीं पहुंचेंगे जिन्होंने इस घटना को अंजाम दिया है, हम उन तक भी पहुंचेंगे जिन्होंने पर्दे के पीछे बैठकर हिंदुस्तान की सरजमी पर ऐसी नापाक हरकतों की साजिशें रची हैं। ऐसी हरकतों का जिम्मेदार और इसके जिम्मेदार लोगों को आने वाले कुछ ही समय में जोरदार तरीके से नजर आएगा। मैं देशवासियों को आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं।
All right, General S.L. Narasimhan, come in on the remarks made by Rajnath Singh. The fact that he said that India is going to act within a finite period of time against the perpetrators of the attacks in Pahalgam and against their masters who are hiding behind a curtain, does that indicate to you that some sort of a military offensive is imminent?
Thank you, Vishnu, and my heartfelt condolences to all the families who have suffered their family members in this dastardly attack. This kind of an inspection was in any case, a reaction was in any case expected. Like it was said some time ago that all options are on the table, is what was said. The diplomatic and the political actions have already started, as we can see it from the press briefing of the MEA. The one that is left with is the military action that will probably follow at some point in time. We have precedences to this in terms of Balakot as well as the trans LOC operation that we conducted sometime earlier. Anything could be happening, and I think this is a clear warning that this kind of an action may be expected. The time limits have not been given, so proper planning and everything should actually undergo for this. Reaction is something that we should not be looking at. We should be looking at action, where reaction is something which the perpetrators of this attack would expect. We need to act and not react so well. Therefore, I think we need to plan this properly, and I am sure something will be in the offing in future.
My colleague Aishwarya Jain also joins us at this stage. Aishwarya, one very important meeting, the Cabinet Committee on Security, but prior to that, even earlier today, the Prime Minister was briefed by the Foreign Minister upon his arrival from Riyadh. Then there was that all-important announcement, which we just heard from the Foreign Secretary. Quite clearly, India is calibrating its position. Would you agree that that's what has happened today?
Well, certainly, and the next step forward is to take all the political parties of the country together, and government sources clearly indicating to us that the steps that have been taken today in the CCS, the decisions that have been taken now, tomorrow would be communicated to all the political parties of the country. The floor leaders would be called. Rajnath Singh, Defence Minister, will be chairing that all-party meeting, and they will be taken into the consideration. So, to make consensus amongst the political parties as well, the government now will approach the political parties as far as the decisions that they have taken today.
All right, Aishwarya, thanks very much for being with us. I'm just going to go back to a few more details of what was announced by the Foreign Secretary, the Indus Waters Treaty between India and Pakistan being held in abeyance. What is the Indus Waters Treaty? It's a water-sharing agreement between the two countries signed in 1960. It's facilitated by the World Bank. It governs the use of the Indus River system. That includes the rivers Sutlej, Ravi, Chenab, Jhelum, and the Indus, also the Beas River. The treaty allocates the waters of these rivers between India and Pakistan to manage our shared resources and reduce conflicts. It needs to be mentioned that we've gone to war with Pakistan on several occasions. The Indus Water Treaty has always survived even the worst of conflicts. It has an impact on hydropower, irrigation, storage, and therefore it is of critical importance to both sides. There is a dispute resolution mechanism, but with India holding this entire agreement in abeyance, it is an extremely big step. General Dua, on this step, the Indus Water Treaty being held in abeyance, Pakistan would likely challenge that in a court of law. Be that as it may, what do you believe are the likely impact points in the immediate run?
Vishnu, Indus Water Treaty has already been brought out. Holding this in abeyance is a very strong step taken by India. As per our water sharing, the upper three rivers, Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab, we have share on 20% of water, and 80% roughly has to flow down to Pakistan. The Punjab, Pakistan, on Pakistan side, the Punjabi heartland of Pakistan depends on this water. And the heartland of Punjab is going to suffer very badly if water issue is impacted. So that is one big response over here. Second is the issue of a diplomatic offensive of withdrawing the staff, the military advisors from the high commissions.
General Dua, hold your thought. I'm going to come to that in a moment. Sorry? I just want to break this up. Amitabh Mattu, come in specifically on the potential impact of India taking this decision on the Indus Waters Treaty. I see this as being the biggest step which has been announced today. I don't know if you agree, but what are the likely impact points in the immediate run?
I think this is the biggest step, because the Indus Water Treaty has never been used as an instrument of foreign policy. All through the many wars that we have had, the Indus Water Treaty agreement has remained intact. One of the problems, of course, within the treaty document is that there is no exit clause. And there are dispute resolution mechanisms. You can renegotiate the treaty if both sides agree in the light of technological developments. But you cannot unilaterally withdraw from the treaty unless you use the clause within international law of rebus sic stantibus, that the circumstances under which you sign the treaty have altered so dramatically and drastically that you now are exercising that option. Abeyance, to me, means that we'll wait and watch. We've given a warning to Pakistan that as the upper riparian state, and given that the Jhelum Chenab and the Indus flow from India to Pakistan, we can stop the waters of those rivers going into Punjab. It's not that we are saying that we're going to stop it, but that now all bets are off. We are going to use water as a way of exercising pressure, exercising leverage on Pakistan. Pakistan can no longer get away with the kind of terrorism that it perpetuates and rest completely show that the treaty will not be impacted upon. The treaty was negotiated by the World Bank, and their provisions for having arbitration or dispute resolvers come in. That's happened when the Kishanganga dispute happened or the Vola barrage happened, but that's separate. But I think this is the first time since 1960 that this is that India has actually used the treaty. And if the trend continues, then you could suspend water going into Pakistan, and that will hurt. That will hurt Pakistan very badly. But it'll hurt, of course, also lots of innocent farmers and people. But that's not the point. The point is it'll hurt Pakistan. Secondly, of course, is that short of cutting off diplomatic relations, what we have done is reduce the number of staff, asked all the defense advisors to leave. So the next escalatory step, as with the Indus Water Treaty, you have a space for the next escalatory step, which means stopping the waters or slowing down the water flow. That is the escalatory step there. Here, the escalatory step could be further cut in the number of staff. And simultaneously, in terms of SARC visa, that's only for a certain category of judges, parliamentarians, journalists, sportsmen who are allowed to travel back and forth across SARC countries with a sticker. I often travel so as a vice chancellor because you had a SARC exemption. And that's also, again, one first step. The second step would be stopping all Pakistani citizens from coming into India. Similarly, and I think what the Foreign Office has done, calibrated the responses. It's across the board, but incrementally left space for it to be escalated. Okay. And this is the diplomatic part. We have to see what the military and the armed forces do. But that, as you said, is something that Defense Minister Rajnath Singh hinted at, but we'll have to just wait and see.
Prakash Singh, just pointing to Amitabh's last point, how this may be veering, and that's my interpretation as well, to some sort of military action in the future. The fact that you've brought down the overall strength of the missions to just 30, which means that it's absolutely minuscule. Pakistani nationals on a particular visa have been asked to leave. The Attari border crossing has been closed. And again, India, our armed forces are now on a high vigil, right? So that alert level has also gone up. Do you believe that, we are moving towards eventual strikes? Obviously, we would do this at a time and place of our choosing. These things don't happen instantly, right? Do you believe we are headed in that direction?
Whatever measures have been announced by the Ministry of External Affairs, I think they are well calculated, well measured, and they satisfy the intelligentsia at least. And there are steps in the right direction, and these are the maximum diplomatic and political measures which could have been taken. But the mood of the country being what it is, and the kind of hurt which they have inflicted on us, and it is not for the first time. I mean, they are just they like the leopard which can't change its spots. They keep on perpetrating one incident after another. There is Pulwama, there is Puri, there is Uri, there is 2611. Some incident or the other keeps on happening. So the point is, the people of the country would expect more than the diplomatic and the political measures which have been announced, and they would expect some kind of drastic action to be taken against Pakistan, which teaches them a lesson that perpetrating an act of terror is going to be counterproductive, and in the cost-benefit analysis, it's going to be a very costly proposition. And Rajnath Singh has already given a hint of that they would go not only after the perpetrators, but also after the sponsors, the people who masterminded the attack. So that leaves the option before the government of India, leaves the option to take some kind of action across the border. Now, what kind of action they will take, when will they take, I think we should leave that for the government to decide, and I'm sure they will take some appropriate decision depending on the gravity and the circumstances of the situation.
Sure. Michael Kugelman, India appears to have a great deal of support at the present moment, and I think that's natural. At least 15 to 16 heads of state have written in and offered their condolences. But if we are looking at the potential of military strikes, the United States, despite its support, would probably have a certain opinion one way or the other. Do you believe that America would try and prevent an escalation to a military situation by talking to India, potentially Pakistan? Or do you believe that America under Trump would actually back India? We're already strategic partners in enabling any such strike to be carried out, potentially with American intelligence or assistance?
Well, so far the public responses from the Trump administration, including a phone call that Vice President Vance reportedly had with Prime Minister Modi today, suggests that the U.S. would not try to stand in the way of an initial Indian retaliation. I mean, we don't know. I would say that, as you know, historically, the U.S. position has been to try to step in and de-escalate tensions between India and Pakistan when they're going through crises before things get totally out of control. But again, based on what I'm seeing from the strong tone of the messaging from Trump administration officials, suggests that there may be a willingness to step back and let India respond the way it deems fit. But I don't necessarily think that would last. The U.S. does not have an interest in a serious crisis that escalates into something worse in the region. But I'd end by noting that, as you know, the vice president reportedly said today that the U.S. stands ready to provide all assistance to India to jointly combat terrorism. Those are very significant words from the U.S. vice president, who, of course, is in India at that moment.
Ifra Jan, you're a spokesperson of the ruling party in Jammu and Kashmir. We are seeing an exodus of tourists. Does it almost feel that this is a return to several years back when there were hardly any tourists in Kashmir? That is a situation which seemed to have changed over a period of time. This morning there were 3,337 people who got on flights between 6 a.m. and 12 p.m. in the afternoon, just 6 hours alone, and people wanting to get out. So is this, in a sense, your worst fear of tourists leaving, obviously civilians having been massacred? Ifra, can you hear me? I think that line is frozen. Yeah, go ahead, Ifra. Go ahead.
Of course, tourism.
All right, sorry, that line is a bit bad. We'll patch you again in a moment. Amitabh, would you like to take that question briefly?
I think it's a very sad day for Kashmir. The last 2 or 3 years have witnessed an unprecedented number of tourists from all over India and abroad coming into Kashmir. Lots of Kashmiris had invested in cafes, hotels, homestays, transport carriers. All that is at risk. Public memory is short, but not that short. Kashmir as a safe and sacred place for tourism, that reputation has taken a huge dent. It's wounded. And I think it will take time before the trust of the people, because after all, tourism is based on trust. A certain understanding that when you visit a place, you'll come back home safely and that you'll be able to enjoy the beauty of the land. That trust has been deeply eroded. I think it'll take time. What is very, very heartening, of course, is that the valley as a whole is mourning what's happened in Pahalgam. Because after all, the worst people who are going to be impacted, apart from those who were killed and injured, are the people of the valley. Their economy, their reputation is in tatters. Because this whole idea of Kashmir is the syncretic philosophy that has guided the people of Kashmir is so has been so deeply hurt by what's happened in Pahalgam. So frankly speaking, it is a big body blow to tourism in Kashmir, and we'll have to just wait and see whether the next season, because really I'm not optimistic about this season, next season, how that will fare, and much will depend on what happens between now and the next spring.
General Saha, are we getting ourselves ahead of ourselves in getting into a possible military retaliation or conversations about it? I think it is, maybe we may not be, given what Rajnath Singh has said, and I would suggest that airstrikes are an option. We've used that in Balakot. Some would suggest that it needs to be a lot more visible in terms of an impact point. We've done surgical strikes in the past, which were very well coordinated operations, but in terms of sending out a visible impact, some would suggest that it wasn't as big in that sense. What are India's military options at this stage?
You see, whether it is an airstrike, whether it is some other means, to my mind, the means are not significant. The target is significant. You see, post Uri, when it was an attack on one of our forward positions along the line of control, the target chosen were launch pads along the line of control. It was shallow along the line of control. Post Pulwama, when a huge column of CRPF was attacked, huge losses in terms of the numbers, almost double of what went down during the Uri attack. So the target was the training camps near Balakot, the Jabri Top and all that. This time around, my sense is the target would be something more significant and more appropriate, because the terrorists and their sponsors have chosen to attack innocent civilians in such large numbers, in such a vulnerable position, in an open meadow, without any protection whatsoever, surrounded by mountains, covered by trees, and coming and attacking so mercilessly. This is something which cannot be, forgotten, cannot be left like that. The response has to be appropriate. And I think that is coming, and this is exactly what the Raksha Mantri means when he says what he says.
General Dua, you had personal knowledge and foresight of the surgical strikes when they did go through. General Satish Dua, there are a lot of people in India who would be asking, why hasn't India done something already? Why are we not an Israel to respond instantly? And I think it's important to perhaps reflect on the fact that if we are doing something big militarily, even if it's a relatively small operation, you can't do things necessarily in haste. Would that be correct?
Absolutely, Vishnu. The diplomatic responses have been announced after this high-level meeting at CCS. The Indus Water bold response has been announced, because those are the decisions that can be taken instantly or over a period of some time, a few hours, and the decision has been taken. But as far as military response is concerned, firstly, there has to be some preparation for it, although we are continuously ready to take some actions, which we can't discuss. But what shape that response will take and when should that response be launched is a matter of a strategic decision. And it has to be at like you yourself use the phrase, at time and place of your own choosing. And the response has to be a very significant target. The military, so the response earlier we launched only at the terror camps, but I read through the lines between what the defense minister has said, and he says we also not only have to target the terrorists that perpetrated these attacks, but we also need to target their handlers, the ones who are actually masterminding this thing. So I am sure our response will be appropriate at the right time. It cannot be immediate, but it won't be too long.
And he said as much. General Narasimhan, there is this expectation perhaps that, look, we are going to see airstrikes. Some would suggest that we're going to see more surgical strikes. But in fact, the range of military options available to India are significant. and therefore perhaps it's not right to prejudge what a military option would be. There's the entire naval domain as well. There is, intelligence-led operations too. There is opening up the line of control in terms of artillery, shelling, etc., etc. So would you suggest that the government would be looking at all of these options before deciding on any one path?
It is true, because when they said all options are on the table, I think whatever you have mentioned so far and beyond is on the table. And I think that is going to be discussed in detail and executed with precision. That is what they will be looking at. And military operations, as my colleagues here would know, they can't just be launched all of a sudden in one go. It takes time to plan. It takes time to analyze the effects of what you're going to do and then be prepared for everything. So it will take time. It will take some kind of effort to ensure the success of that particular operation. I'm sure all the options are on the table, including the naval one, which you mentioned, air, ground forces, everything is on the table. So I'm sure we'll be seeing the progress of this particular line of thinking as we go along in the next few days.
Mr. Prakash Singh, the key point is that all of us over here are being very cautious and careful with the words we use. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that we have to, as a nation, be ready for the fact that when we attack, Pakistan will retaliate. And I would suggest that we need to have the stomach to sustain a fight, to be aware that it's not going to be 100% win-win. There will be casualties potentially on our sides. When Balakot took place, a day after Abhinandan was shot down, it caught the imagination of the nation. But if there are, for example, intense air battles which take place, there will be fighter pilots shot down on both sides. If there are surgical strikes conducted by India, there is the possibility of casualties of our own soldiers. We need to be able to sustain these losses and carry on and hit harder. Is that something that collectively people need to understand?
Vishnu, I'll respond to your question, but before that, I want to make a small observation about what Mr. Mattu said. He said that the entire valley is in mourning. Well, I hope he's right. The point is, can you carry out this kind of massacre, this kind of carnage, this kind of killing without local support? There must be very good local support that people here have assembled in large numbers. They are all Indians, and that there are no security forces around. These signals, this ground intelligence must have been conveyed to the terrorists by locals. So what was the local support? I mean, that is something which needs to be investigated. And another thing, you see, for the last about 3-4 months, we have been fed by the government, by the Ministry of Home Affairs, by the government of Kashmir, that all is well and that things are returning to normal. The Lieutenant Governor recently, I think in February 25, he said that there is zero recruitment to the terrorist ranks. Now, if there is zero recruitment to terrorist ranks, well, that's fine. And the government also said that last year we have killed 75 terrorists, and as on date, only 59 terrorists are active. Now, if these facts are true, I don't think this kind of incident would have happened. And what the government is probably missing out, what our intelligence agencies are missing out, is that at the subterranean level, below the surface, things are happening about which we are not aware. There is a strong local support, and there is a strong intention from Pakistan side to hit India hard. Now, coming to your question, yes, but a great nation does not start calculating casualties before a war begins. I mean, once you decide to take a step, we have to take the step. Some hard punitive action has to be taken, and if that leads to a war, so be it. Let there be casualties, let there be bombardments. So what? We should be mentally prepared for it, and we should not think of a situation where we are able to just hit the Pakistanis and they will not hit back at us. The point is, who has got greater power, who has got greater resilience, who has got greater capacity to survive. So I think that is where we should be very firm that yes, we are going to take this decisive step, irrespective of the consequences, irrespective of whatever happens subsequently.
I'll get Amitabh to respond after this break, but just in terms of the statistics, I was actually briefed on this some time back, and the sense among security agencies that in the hinterland there are 120 plus terrorists. Approximately 70 are in Kashmir, about 50 to 60 south of the Pir Panjal. Out of this 120, about 110 are Pakistani terrorists. In other words, the belief continues to be that the number of Indian terrorists operating alongside these Pakistani terrorists is absolutely minimal, just 5 to 10. There has, however, been an increase in infiltration of late, 40 to 50 attempts in the last 6 to 8 months, many attempts through the IB, the international boundary as well. And the recruitment numbers, Mr. Singh, you did reflect. In 2024, there was a sense that it had gone down to just 6 recruits. But you do raise larger questions, which we will address, but that's after this short break.
Co-presented by Panasonic, trusted AC for smart homes. And Motorola Edge 60 Fusion, edge out the ordinary.
Smart hai.
Thanks, Dad.
Not you. Panasonic AC.
घर ले आइए Panasonic Smart AC और रहिए future ready.
Panasonic. Beyond better, the new Tiguan R-Line.
Volkswagen. Finisher windows. Beautiful and durable designs. Installation से maintenance की lifelong customer service. आपके घर में Finisher नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए.
Finer Finesta.
Introducing Instagram teen accounts, automatic protections for teens. With built-in limits for who can contact them and the content they can see, helping teens safely connect to the people and things that matter most. Plus, teens under 16 require parental approval to change safety settings. New Instagram teen accounts, automatic protections for who can contact them and the content they can see.
What smart AC?
Smart AC वो है जो बाहर के बदलते मौसम के हिसाब से होम को रखे सुपर कूल.
घर ले आइए Panasonic Smart AC और रहिए future ready.
Panasonic.
Welcome back. In case you've just tuned us, a day of fast-moving news developments. A day after 26 citizens, one foreign national, killed as a result of that horrific terror attack in Pahalgam, all civilians. India has held the Indus Waters Treaty between India and Pakistan in abeyance. It's one of the strongest diplomatic moves that India has ever made. This is an agreement on water sharing which has survived all the wars between India. Right now, India has put that in abeyance. The Attari border has been closed. The border post has been closed, will be closed from the 1st of May. Pakistani nationals who've come to India on a particular SARC visa have been told to go back. Those who've got the visa and have still not come, those visas are deemed cancelled. Those in India already on that SARC visa have 48 hours to leave our country. Defense advisors have been declared persona non grata. In other words, the Army, Air Force and Navy military advisors of India in Pakistan will be brought back, and the Pakistani ones here will be told to leave. and the posts themselves have been annulled. So there is no post of defense advisor, military, air force, or navy advisor in Pakistan or India at the moment. Support staff in the missions will be brought down. Remember, we don't have a head of mission. That was already brought down earlier on, several years back. The overall strength, however, now will be brought down from 55 to 30. All the armed forces are on high vigil. The perpetrators will be held responsible, and India will be unrelenting, is what the Foreign Secretary has said. There was a Cabinet Committee on Security meeting chaired by the Prime Minister just preceding this. I wanted to go to General Narasimhan. Prakash Singh had some very important points about local support and his belief that, look, there perhaps needed to be local support for an operation like this to take place. What are your thoughts on that?
It's very clear because, even amongst the perpetrators, there seems to have been two people who are locals in that amongst the terrorists who did this act. So obviously there is some amount of local support that has been there in that particular area, if not the whole of Kashmir. The thing is that we need to look at this whole operation holistically. We need to do some kind of stock taking of what happened. Need not necessarily be on a vindictive mode, but ensure that such lapses do not occur. And the intelligence setup, that should have actually, there have been some information about this kind of a thing happening because of the statements made in the last few days. But the intelligence setup, which could have probably weakened a little bit because of the normalcy coming back to J&K, must generally get reactivated and ensure that such incidents are actually well thought out, well anticipated, and well catered for to tackle them. So that is something that I think we need to look into. But yes, you are right. To some extent, even the perpetrators of this particular act, two of them were from the locals. Obviously, there would have been some kind of a support locally because they entered. It is said that they entered this area a few days ago. They did a reconnaissance of these areas, is what is being talked about, of some hotels, etc. So those are the kind of things I think that we need to have picked up in clear terms. And these kind of areas where tourists are going at this point in time need some kind of protection to be catered for. All these things I think we need to look into in a very detailed manner.
General Dua, J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, is over here. When Bill Clinton was over here several years back, there was a terrorist attack. A few days back, we've seen the Pakistan Army Chief make these extremely inflammatory remarks on Kashmir being their jugular. Talking about Hindus being different, etc., etc. The Amarnath Yatra is about 2 months away from now, and this attack takes place. Do you believe that this timing is no coincidence?
It is no coincidence. Last week, the Pakistan Army Chief made a very absurd speech and a rant. We've discussed this, all of us have discussed this in great detail. Then the US Vice President being away in the country when this was done, you yourself pointed out about President Bill Clinton's visit earlier, also this was done. Also the fact that that very day, Prime Minister Modi was in Saudi Arabia. And Pakistan is actually troubled by the growing relations between India and Saudi Arabia. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia has been sort of pulling away from Pakistan. So all this, the timing to my mind has been very vital. It has been planned very well, and it has been planned by the perpetrators or the masterminds behind this attack from across.
I'm joined now by my colleague Nazir Masoodi. Nazir, I think it's just so sad that we've seen this exodus of tourists leaving Kashmir. There are so many flights right now. There are any number of cancellations. The local economy is impacted right now, immediately. And that's just terrible for the way of life of any number of Kashmiris who are just getting used to a sense of normalcy, right?
Exactly, and that's why there was outrage on the streets, and people hit the streets almost in all districts across Jammu and Kashmir. From mosques, appeals were made to people come out and protest against these killing of innocent people in Pahalgam, one of the worst terror attacks here in Jammu and Kashmir in recent times, and first such major attack on tourists. and people were shouting slogans. I remember during the heydays of separatism, separatists would call, "Hum Pakistani hai, Pakistan hamara." And today there were slogans in Pahalgam, "Hum Hindustani hai, Hindustan hamara hai." And they were strongly condemning this incident. Some of the Pondiwalas were told me during the day that they are willing, because they know the terrain, they know these forests, they can help army and police to track down the attackers. And in fact, while security forces are engaged in operations to track down the attackers, locals are saying they want complete end of terrorism and militancy and violence from Jammu and Kashmir. And now the response of the government of India is really severe, much more than many would have expected, because suspending Indus Waters Treaty is much bigger challenge for Pakistan than even the war, because its whole survival depends on the waters from the three rivers which flow from the Jammu and Kashmir, which is Indus, Chidab and Jhelum. So these, as you rightly said, this treaty survived 3 wars and the 35 years of militancy, but perhaps this attack is crossing the red line. That's why India has taken this step. We'll have to see how Pakistan is going to respond to this. In fact, Pakistan was always, whenever there was some barrages were built, whether it was Waller barrage, whether it was Kishanganga project, terror attacks were carried out on them. They tried to destabilize these projects. So when India decides now, suspend this Indus Waters Treaty, what would be the response? Many were expecting that India may terminate the ceasefire agreement, which was agreed on February 2021. So, but that has not happened. While the ceasefire on the LOC remains intact, at least that has not been officially terminated, but India has taken a step further by suspending Indus Waters Treaty. We'll have to see what would be the response from Pakistan, but this is something seen very, very strong response to this major terror attack. And as many people, participants in this debate were talking about the local sport, I can tell you I have never seen such a response, such a protest against militancy, terrorism or violence in Kashmir, that to complete shutdown against militants and militancy in the valley. This is first time. This is the real change. As I said, while security forces have launched operations to track down the attackers, locals demand that militancy should end. Militants, it is not just killing militants, but militancy should end.
Sure.
It was from Doda to Kishtwar to the valley to Kupara. Everywhere you see candlelight vigils, you see spontaneous protests, you see complete shutdown and this complete unanimity. Jammu and Kashmir government has written to the Lieutenant Governor asking for a special assembly session on this one-day assembly session, so that this barbaric attack is strongly condemned here in Jammu and Kashmir. Vishnu.
General Saha, is there a real worry now about a linkage of terrorist attempts south of the Pir Panjal with north of the Pir Panjal and the greater valley area?
Actually, Vishnu, you asked a very pertinent question. This linkage which is developing from the Rajouri Poonch area towards Kishtwar, and if you recall 1995 Al-Faran, between that Kishtwar area and coming towards the same Pahalgam area, near about the same region. From Kishtwar, it is not only the valley, it is also the areas connecting to the western Ladakh region. So actually, this is very significant, So to that extent, this new avenue expands the arc. So therefore, a very strong action is a must, because this must be nipped in the bud and cannot be tolerated because of the larger ramifications of Pakistan, China, and the entire ballgame over here. So therefore, this question which you asked is absolutely pertinent at this point in time, because we have seen what has happened in Jammu, we have seen what has happened in Kathua, and the flow from Kathua towards Kishtwar. And now we are seeing this happening in, Pahalgam, and the common factors, stories of which we are hearing even over here. So therefore, all of these are interconnected. So this is a very significant factor that you bring out.
A final question to you, Amitabh Mattu. The Pakistan Army Chief appears to be a man who's besieged. He's got problems in Balochistan, he's got an economy in that country which is non-functional. He's positioning himself once again, because the Pakistan Army has done this in the past, as the ideological holder of everything that is Pakistan. He's spoken about the jugular and Kashmir. He faces all sorts of problems within the leadership structure of the Pakistan Army. Do you believe that it's some element of desperation at the level of the Pakistan Army which has triggered what we are seeing in Kashmir?
I mean, he is besieged. That's quite right, because Pakistan is fractured like never before in terms of what's happening in Balochistan or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The economy is in tatters, but he seems to be delusional and if not deranged. His predecessor, Bajwa, was a much more pragmatic realist. On the other hand, Munir seems to be living in some medieval times. His speech was the most obnoxious speech that I've heard ever of an army chief. He didn't speak like an army chief. He didn't have the gravitas, the stature, or the sobriety. He was ranting about how Hindus and Muslims are different, and that's what the basis of creation of Pakistan is. I think he's personally ambitious. He thinks that this is a way in which he can get legitimacy and which can ensure that Pakistan Army's larger credibility can be restored. But I feel really, really very strongly that he's an extremely dangerous person personally. And if he's presiding over Pakistan's army today, there is trouble. There's only trouble domestically, but also in terms of Pakistan's external relations.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. It's just, it's so sad that we need to be having this discussion at all, but things have crossed a red line. India needs to respond. We've already started doing that diplomatically. Will there be a military response as well? 26 innocent lives, tourists in a popular part of Kashmir, gunned down in this horrific manner. The world is watching. India must respond. We'll take a short break. There's more coming up.